What is up, y'all? I'm Benjamin Outdoors, and this is my channel. So today, I actually have a special video for y'all. So this is a huge part of my Overland build. So I currently have the rotors and brakes off my truck because I was gonna do a warranty claim on my brake pads because they're squealing a ton. Now I didn't replace my rotors, probably should have last go round because I did eat into the rotor a little bit, but I'm ordering new rotors, but that's gonna take about a week because it's half the price if you order online, and that's what I did. I don't wanna spend $900 at O'Reilly's or Advanced. So I ordered them on eBay. They'll be here at, like a week or so. And since I already warrantied my brake pads, I don't want to mate those to the old rotors. So I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna leave it jacked up. So this gives me time to install my Eaton, frick, where is it? There we go. My Eaton e-locker. So I have an e-locker in the rear of this truck already. It comes factory, really nice feature, but it doesn't have one in the front. Very few vehicles come with the e-locker in the front anyway. Now, I think the trimmer, the Ford F250 trimmer, I believe that one has a posi in the front, if I'm not mistaken. The only thing that I know of that comes with a e-locker factory is, I believe it's obviously a Rubicon. Now, you do have, like the Tacoma, I think it has a electronic system. It'll send power to whichever wheel needs it, I believe. That's what my father-in-law has on his TRD. But obviously this truck does not, so I'm gonna install this puppy. I was able to get this thing for like 1,200 bucks, I think. And obviously, it's not a sponsorship. I was able to get this cheaper through my work. Nothing special at all. Eaton is obviously a very large company. They do so much stuff other than a locker. I mean, they do so much industrial stuff. So I didn't even bother reaching out to them, seeing if they would send me one. So this truck is basically going to be almost entirely funded by myself with my main job, so that's good at least. I do have some stuff that was sent to me, but for the most part, all these videos are all going to be on my own dime. Anyway, let's break into this and see what we got. So we got manual, wiring harness, then we got the actual carrier itself. Woo! This is no joke. This thing is heavy. Ugh. This thing is gnarly. And you got the 2-wire system for the magnet. I'm actually gonna have to transfer the old ring gear onto this carrier. So people don't typically advise you to reuse gears, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with my set of gears in this thing. The truck's only got 130,000 miles on it. Every time I've changed the oil, it's been clean, so there's shouldn't be any issues. I'm gonna run a pattern, measure the backlash before I disassemble the front end, so I can get a good idea when this carrier goes in there. Hopefully there's no adjustments with the carrier. Hopefully I can just put it with the stock shims and send it. I guess we'll just, have to see when we get there, but anyway, I'm gonna have to get bearings, also bolts, and that should be it. Oh, there we go. Thing is tricky to get out. You have to have like the right set of snap ring pliers, and these were almost not good enough. Came out a lot easier. That's pretty good though. This thing hasn't been off in the 130,000 miles the truck's been alive. Look how clean that is. Now I'll probably put a little bit more grease on it than that's in there, but it looks pretty good though. Wow, this looks brand new. Look at that. Oh, looks like I just put it in here. Man, it looks freaking brand new in there. And before I do anything else, I'm gonna actually mark the caps with a punch. I'm gonna do like 1 dot, and then 2 dots, and 2 dots. So basically you just line the dots up and the caps are on correct. So now I gotta try to get the axle shafts out, and these are always tricky. I'm gonna try to pull on the back of the inner shaft after the U-joint and see if I can pull it out. You need 2 big pry bars really to pull this whole thing. Oh. Oh. There we go. I don't think I've ever removed this one actually. I'm gonna clean this surface on up in here. Get that dust sealed, the dust seal off. I'm going to support this thing as much as possible. Okay, so it's time to check the backlash, which I bought this magnetic base and I bought this little machinist dial thing, measuring tool. This was like $34 for both of them at Harbor Freight. And then I found, I actually went to my job and got some marking compound because I couldn't find any that was local. So I didn't want to have to order on Amazon, and since I obviously use it at work a lot, I was able to get some there. Let's see if we can get this thing on here. Oh, that's gonna be a little tricky. Dang. This rotates very easy. Alright, so I was able to finagle it around my tie rod and my track bar. So now I'm going to measure the backlash. I'm just going to gently spin the carrier back and forth, just enough till it hits the pinion. And it looks like it is 4 thousandths, maybe a little bit under 4 thousandths. Actually, that's 3 thousandths. That's not much backlash. I'm not exactly sure what this backlash is supposed to be, but if I were to guess, it'd be 6 to 10 thousandths. A lot of the Dana 30s and 44s that I work with are that between 6 to 10. Now again, I'll look up the spec in a few minutes, but 3 seems awfully small. The gear oil is good. I mean, it looks like it has a decent pattern to begin with. Doesn't look like it's worn badly, so I guess I'll put it close to 3 thousandths. Now I'm going to wipe off a couple of teeth. Now I'm going to spin the pinion with a drill, and then I'm going to put pressure on it, and I'm going to do forward and reverse. So it's got, so it's, you know, marking coast and driving. so it should have gave me a decent marking. Very little contact. Pattern isn't great, but I'm going to put it back exactly how it was. So, I mean, that it came from the factory, or at least it's worn like that since the factory, so I'm gonna put it back together, and if I have a similar pattern, I'm gonna run it, just because obviously, you know, if I'm using a used set of gears, I don't want to try to change the pattern. I'll never be able to get the pattern to look normal, or how it should. But I'm gonna take some pictures of that, and then I'm gonna yank this carrier out. And they're probably tight, because, just cause, golly! Golly. Those are gonna be fun to torque back down. Well, I guess my torque wrench is a lot longer than this, so should get more leverage that way. I hope I can sneak this carrier out without having to take my tie rod off. Oh man. That joker was loose. Holy crap. Oh my gosh. Huh. Oh. Dang, it's nice. Comes apart so easy. Now I'm going to start cleaning out the axle tubes, so when I put the axle shafts back in, it doesn't collect dirt and then push it into the carrier. What? These bearings say China on them. Oh my gosh, that does not make me happy. Pretty sure I'll probably buy some Timkins or something. Ugh. And this thing is so much heavier. So much more mass. Same height. That's good. Before you go putting the ring gear on the carrier, you want to just take a file and make sure there's no burrs on the surface. Just for giggles, let's see if this thing engages up here. You put 12 volts to it, it activates the magnet. So it works. Heck yeah. So the shim packs are actually behind the carrier bearings, so I'm gonna have to use a puller or actually cut these bearings off. I don't have a fancy puller like I do at work. It's got like a big shaft and you put it over and you gotta put it around the bearing and you screw the top and it pulls the bearing off. Don't have that. I got that at work, but I'm not gonna wait for that. I'm probably just gonna cut the bearings off now. I'm gonna try to find out the size. I'm gonna actually put them behind these bearings as well. Now, these don't have spots to be able to use as 2 or 3 jaw puller, or I would have done that. But the nice thing about this new one, it actually on the driver's side has a spot for a 3 jaw puller, and on the back side, the passenger side, it has one for a 2 jaw puller. Thankfully, if I need to pull these bearings on and off, it's gonna be on the driver's side with the 3 jaw puller. This is the side I'm gonna have to be able to pull this bearing on and off potentially. Now, there was not much tension on the carrier bearings. There was not much load, preload. So I'm actually going to probably have to add some shim to this side. And if it's not enough, I'm gonna have to pull the bearing back off, put some more shim in. So I'm thankful I can fit the 3 jaw puller underneath this. That was a good design on their part. I just wish there was a 3 jaw puller access on the backside as well. And since the carrier was loose in the axle housing, I'm gonna have to add shim to one side or the other. Now, since I didn't have much backlash, I had about 3 to 4 thousandths, I did look up the spec and it's 6 to 10 thousandths like I thought. So I'm going to push the actual carrier over to the passenger side, which should increase the backlash to at least 5, maybe 6 thousandths, I'm hoping. I'm gonna put a 5 thousandths shim on this side, so hopefully to tighten up the carrier inside the housing and increase the backlash to that 6 to 10, hopefully. Anyway, let's go ahead and cut these bearings off so we can get the shims out and put them on the right side of the carrier it's supposed to go on. And then we'll go ahead and buy some bearings and go ahead and press them on. Some were hot. Frick. Making a mess. So I didn't show it, but I actually smacked this with a chisel and was able to get it to crack. I cut on the thickest part of the race, and then I cut at a steep angle, and then I just hit it with a chisel. And unfortunately, I barely went through. So I did nick the carrier just a hair. This would still be usable, but it's a little frustrating when you're trying to remove it. I mean, I was attempting to not damage the carrier. I'm not going to use this, but I just wanted to not damage it. It's, you know, good practice to be able to pull these off with a grinder and not damage the shims or the carrier itself. It didn't pop like the other one, but it's coming off. Ah! Ooh, those shims are hot. So the best I could find was Precision, and it was still 80 bucks for 2 races and 2 bearings. They're still Chinese made, which sucks, but it is what it is. I mean, there was Chinese bearings in there, so supposedly Precision is better than the national brand, which those are the races. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm going to now put the shims on and then press the new bearings on. So I got the passenger side, driver's side, new stack of shims. So I'll probably need to find a 5 thousandths to add over here, but we're gonna start with pressing on the passenger side because that needs no shims. I just gotta find something to put over that. One of my trusty bin. There we go, man, that's perfect. All right, that's pretty tight. Might need a bump to get this thing off. There we go. So I should be able to flip this over since the ridge of the carrier actually sitting higher than the cage. So when I press down on the other side, it's not gonna bind the cage up and actually damage it, so. So here's the original shims. So we have like a 32 thousandths. It's like a 4 thousandths. That's a 5. So I'm probably just gonna add this in this stack. Hopefully this is all we need. Put the stack on there. Old race. Pretty tight. So I gotta try to figure out a way to be able to hold this carrier still while I torque the ring gear bolts. Now, this vise is way too small to be able to hold something this big. So I got a C-clamp and then the vise. I'm gonna see if I can stick a long piece of metal in each side of this. So while I torque it and turn it, one side hits here and one side hits here. So I'm really hoping that'll keep it from twisting, and hopefully I can torque these down. I'll also be adding red Loctite to these, so that's just one more added protection. So anyway, let's see if we can get some piece of metal, something maybe like a strong big screwdriver or just, you know, a metal rod or something that I can really put the torque to it. So I actually have some impact sockets that slide in here, and I'm going to try to use the vise to be the main thing that holds this thing in place, and then hopefully this little 3-inch C-clamp also holds it in place. I guess we'll see. I only have to go to 110 foot-pounds, so let's hope this thing holds on tight. All right, let's try this out. Oh, shoot. Ah, shoot. All right, that might be a lot better. Nice. Heck yeah. All right, it's time to test fit the carrier to see if it's actually more snug or if I need to add more shims to the carrier bearings. Oh, this is so uncomfortable. So much worse than working on it at the shop. So I got an extension, and I'm gonna try to use this. Just bump it into place. Try to be quiet as possible. I think that's bottomed out. So obviously this carrier is significantly tighter than the previous one because I added that 5 thousandths. The carrier just, when I pulled it, it just fell right out. This one is going to take a lot to get it out. And I only added a 5 thousandths, one of the smallest shims you can put in there. So it took up that slack. Now the preload should be good. It shouldn't be too much on these carrier bearings. It was a little bit tricky to get it in here because both the races were kind of cockeyed out. So once I actually got them, you know, turned a little bit how they should be, past the axle, like where the housing is, they kind of straightened out and it was easier to go in. But when I was first just putting it in there, it was a little bit harder, so it may have looked like there was more tension on there than it was, but should be good. I think there is slightly more backlash, so that's gonna be good. So now I'm gonna try to put a rag up here, drill a hole, probably put a magnet as well to try to catch any shavings that the rag doesn't catch. But yeah, I'm pretty happy so far. So I got the cap on. So I want to try to go a little bit higher than I was planning on going, because I don't want to have this come down, have to go up and around the cap. So I'm going to try to drill a little bit further up, basically on this where it crests and starts to turn horizontally. That's where I'm going to try to hit it, right there. I'll stick it on there. Hopefully it'll catch any other shards that I may miss. Like freaking butter. So we're actually matching up our carrier caps. They actually put a stamp in a certain orientation so we can just put it back how it was. Pretty easy. Kudos to Ford for doing that. Kind of hitting with an impact just to kind of get it to suck in a little bit more if it had to. Now, according to my spec sheet, this thing gets torqued down to 80 foot-pounds. All right, those are 80 foot-pounds. So I actually like to pre-spin it first before anything, to try to kind of get the carrier to settle where it wants to be. Then I'll put the gauge on to measure the backlash, and then I'll do the pattern. Wow, that right there is almost 7 thousandths. That means we're within backlash spec just by putting that 5 thousandths over on the driver's side. That is awesome. Now we can test it to see the pattern. All right, let's go spin the carrier again. Should give us a good idea. Come on. Oh yeah. Oh heck yeah. Way better than previous one. That's like dead center right there, and it's definitely better. It's definitely better. It still gives me a weird area. That's still pretty weird right there. This one's barely touching. This one touches more. This one touches the most. It's really odd, but that's very similar to what it looked like when I took it apart. But it's better. It's honestly better than when I took it apart. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna go ahead and put some right stuff on this, pull the connector through, and then put a bunch more right stuff on it so it seals it really, really good. And then I'm gonna start assembling it, because these are torqued. And actually I might test this one more time with it in place, just to see the magnet, you know, do its thing. And then after that, I mean, we're good. So let's test it out, make sure it works in here. Heck yeah. ready to put it back together. So there's actually still some crap in there, unfortunately. I am also greasing the U-joints before I put them back in, kind of massaging it around to make sure the grease gets everywhere before I put them back in, because I don't want these to go bad while I'm on the trail. So I put a little gear oil on the actual shaft where the seal sits, so it kind of slides in easier, and then I also lubed up the black ring that sits inside the knuckle to help it slide in easier. And we want to try to hold the shaft off the bottom because there probably is still some crap in there. I didn't clean it out super well, because typically when I disassemble an entire front end, I pull the seals out and everything, but I didn't, so I couldn't clean it out as well as I normally do. But I'm just going to gently hold this off the bottom as much as I can. It's a heavy shaft, and then I'm going to slide it in. There's actually like a tapered plastic piece that actually guides it up into the seal, so as long as you can get it past that, it's not going to damage the seal. Just try to keep it up. Probably did it a little bit, but it is what it is. And when I put the hub back in, it's gonna suck this up where it needs to be. So I just got back from the store and I bought some Right Stuff. This thing is like almost 40 bucks after taxes. It's ridiculous, but this stuff is really good. Plus the Cheese Whiz bottle is really nice. So anyway, I'm gonna put this onto the grommet, and then I'm gonna pull it through. It's gonna help it slide through, but also it's going to help seal up. So it's gonna be many years of, you know, not leaking. And then I'm gonna put some on the outside as well. Got both out. Alright. Popped out actually really easy. I'm gonna put a layer on the outside. This stuff actually hardens up really good. And make sure this piece in here is, you know, spinning free. They say in the manual that you might have to bend these tabs so it can actually, like, you know, wiggle, because if not, if it binds up, it could cause it to engage or something like that. So basically you just want to make sure that's free in there. Lubricate in here so when the hub slides in, it doesn't have a hard time, and it actually kind of seals it up. So it's going to go like this. So I'm going to slide this puppy in. Now comes the fun part, trying to get this clip back on. It's a little bit easier to get on than off though. Kind of hit it, make sure it's seated in there. So I scraped the outer part of these locking hubs so I can put some sealant on it, and so it seals up here properly. I lubricated them a little bit, and then I'm going to put them back in, lock tight the bolts, and the hub will be assembled, and I can put the brakes on and all that stuff. I'm not gonna wire it up just yet because I wanna try to put my lift kit on, but I will do it later on in this video, I promise. There we go. So I got the hubs manually locked into four-wheel drive, and as you can see, I'm spinning one hub and the carrier is spinning, but the other side is not. So I'm gonna take 12 volts and actually put it to the carrier. So you can hear it lock in. Now as I'm spinning it, it spins both sides. I disconnect and it spins like normal, like an open diff. Then I can put it back to it immediately if I want, and it spins both again. It's super, super cool, pretty simple, but yeah, it's gonna make a huge change off-road. I mean, it's gonna be a game changer for sure. I actually got my rotors cut. I had a hard time finding somewhere that was gonna cut them, but actually through my work, I was able to get them cut at O'Reilly's. Got the cover clean, so I just gotta do a line. Stuff's the best. So I'm gonna put some gear oil in here. And by the way, this is not 4T, this is just what I use to transfer. Coming out. Ooh. So it's been a few days since I put the e-locker in, and I actually ended up wiring it. For some reason, I can't find the footage. I don't know if I filmed it and didn't save it, or I put it in a different file that I can't find. I don't know. The footage is gone. No clue where it is. So it wasn't really that much, you know, detailed work anyway. I basically just cut a hole in my dash and put the switch in there and ran the wires. It's not that difficult. You kind of have to run it wherever you think is best. But let me show you what I did. So I pulled this dash bezel out around my cluster, and there's actually a spot right here. I think it had like some holes in it. It was for like some type of sensor or something like that, maybe higher trim levels. There was nothing there on mine, and it was actually the perfect size on the backside to be able to wallow out and fit the switch. So it fits nicely, and I mean, the switch is super deep, but you know, I put it here because it's right next to my, you know, my rear locker. When my, you know, when my shifter is down, it kind of gets in the way, but it's not that big a deal. I'm not going to use this that often to put it over here. There wasn't space back here anyway, but this was the best place for that. And I also have over here some switches for auxiliary lighting. This is the only one used currently right now down here, but I want to leave this stuff open for other things because some of the auxiliary lighting that I have for the truck are dual color. So one's going to be white and then one's going to be amber. So these don't do that. So I did that at the same exact time, just put both those switches in there, and I'm going to show y'all outside where I ran this. So it has to go to the battery. This is sending a signal to a relay near the battery, and then the battery will send power to the e-locker. So it comes up through the firewall, and it's ran to the battery. I got this little fuse block, and then here's the relay. I'm actually gonna build something, weld a plate on top of this battery bracket to be able to house my relay and, you know, the fuse block and everything, and then probably a cutoff switch for the winch and everything above here, just so it's all accessible and looks nice and not all this wires everywhere. But let me show y'all what it looks like down at the axle. There it is. I ran it up an ABS and I think the vacuum line and just basically plumbed it up that direction. And it's just routed up over the radius arm and zip tied to that stuff, and it looks pretty good. And I had the lift on, but I don't want to show y'all that right now because I'll show y'all that in the next video. But overall, just got to clean that up. But it looks good and it works good. So far, I'm pretty happy with it. I haven't really tested it out though yet, so I don't know how well it's going to perform. But in a few weeks, maybe a month or so, I'm actually going to take it out to Richland Wildlife Management area. Once I get the lift, rims, tires, winch on. I also ordered some max tracks. So basically when I have some more equipment, so if I get stuck, I can get myself out. But I really want to test this thing in the sand to see how it does before we go out west. So I'll be doing that in a few weeks, maybe a month, as soon as possible basically. I have a lot to do on the truck, so I'm going to try to get some more stuff done on it. But anyway, until next time, catch you on the flip side.